Hello, everyone, and actually, welcome to the real edition of FPC NFL Sunday. We just got flagged for a false start there because we had a little bit of technical hiccup there, so we apologize. If you jumped into a stream and Braden and I were just staring off into the distance, not knowing what was going on. But no, for real, we are here. We are live. We are here to break down all of NFL's Week 2 Sunday action, and I can't wait. So, Braden, how you doing this morning? Thank you once again for getting up, and thank you once again for keeping the flow.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a really interesting weekend of football already, so I can't wait to see how this Sunday goes. A lot of big games for teams already pretty early in the season. So yeah, it's set to be another really interesting day for week 2.
And we were a little bit wrong about how Thursday worked out, or at least I was, because I think
Yeah.
I made a comment about, oh, there's no way we're going to get Thursday like we did last week this week, and silly me, that's exactly what we got, a down to the last second finish. Real quick before we get into this week's games, what were your thoughts on that game, and what did you take away from that game?
I thought Daniel Jones honestly played one of his better games. We kind of talked before about his fumbles and his turnovers in the past, and really did a good job of just staying in the pocket, making a lot of smart decisions. And unfortunately, it just kind of didn't end up going his way. Obviously, looked like they had a couple opportunities that they left on the board where they had to settle for field goals instead of getting touchdowns. A drop touchdown pass by Darius Slayton, and one of Jones' rushing touchdowns called back. So yeah, I really thought they were going to win the game the way it was looking, but just kind of luck had it going Washington's way.
What do you think about the false start, or I'm sorry, offsides? Because we
Oh my
saw,
gosh.
yeah, we saw after the game that when when slowed down and looked at in super slow mo, it looked like it was just a perfect jump on the snap, and understandably, the Giants are upset because again that directly led to a loss. Now, again, there are many reasons why they lost that game. I'm not someone who likes to
Yeah.
put all the weight on a decision like that, but it did give Washington another opportunity because they missed the field goal. And had they missed that field goal, that was the game. They were going to run out the clock. Giants were going to win. It's tough. I mean, look, if you're in real time trying to watch that in as an official, that's tough. The thing I think people are upset about is that replay is available and they could not catch this, and it could have huge implications for the season down the road. How egregious of a call do you think this was, or do you think it's just one of those you have to? There's some human element to this that you just have to accept, and that was that.
Um, I guess I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think it's one of those calls that just I think you have to be 100% correct or certain when the game's on the line like that. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things that I wish there was more either like not really punishment, but like more more blame that the referees I guess would take themselves sometimes when games are on the line like that. So it's tough, especially when you're lined up right next to the ball. I can kind of see trying to jump it maybe from the outside. But either way, it's just it's very tough to see a game come down to the line like that.
No, yeah, and that's what's devastating because again, like I said, at the end of the day, like we talked about this division and like you know how 7, 8, 9, 10 wins has won this division pretty much every year. So there's not a lot of margin for error for these teams, and that's really the biggest thing. So down the road, if it comes down to, well, maybe the football team wins the division by one game, and all of a sudden you're
Right.
going back to week 1 and you're like, well, you remember when the Giants won that game, quote unquote, until they didn't. And that's really what it's that's really the biggest, you know, issue that could potentially arise, and that's going to be down the road or whatever. But it is a problem when you do have the replay and everything available to you to still get plays like this wrong. But hey, that just makes the intrigue of the NFC East even more because we know this is only the beginning with this division. You expect everything with this division. Anything can happen.
Right.
including the Eagles winning this division. But we're not going to get into that. So, assuming I can find, there we go, there it is. I have my notes right here. I just want to make sure that I found those. We're going to run through some of the key storylines of this week coming up. We're going to talk about some fun things, including Mr. Tom Brady talking about playing until he's 50, and that just gets me all types of excited. And of course, the big cursed 0-2 teams. We'll talk some more about that. But first, what are the bigger games on today's slate? Our very own Caleb Morton is actually down there in sunny. Well, I think it's sunny Miami right now. I don't know. I haven't checked the weather. It's not raining here in St. Petersburg, but I'm about 3.5 hours north. We have the Buffalo Bills, 0-1 Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins that are 1-0. Big AFC East slate. Real quick, I want to get some of your thoughts on this game because I think this is going to be an important game to watch. One, for obviously many reasons. It's a divisional matchup in a division that is fairly wide open, in my opinion. The Bills are the favorite, but, there was some worry after last week, okay, is this going to be the Bills moving forward, or is this just like a little hiccup? The Dolphins eked out a win against the Patriots. Say what you want about, Tua and where you think he might land in the hierarchy of the young quarterbacks, but the Dolphins got the job done. How do you see this game playing out in Miami? Do the Buffalo Bills get back on the right track in this game?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I kind of made a note of Josh Allen's previous games against Miami because it seems like quarterbacks always have that one team, whether it's still early in their career or later on, that they just continue to dominate. So far in 6 games against Miami, Allen has had a completion percentage of 64. He's averaged 258 passing yards per game, 56 rushing yards, 17 touchdown passes to 4 interceptions, only taken 7 sacks in those 6 games. And his rushing, he's had 9.71 yards per carry. So Miami's obviously been dominated by this guy. I think it's going to be kind of a matchup where they're ready to shut him down. And it's going to be interesting to see just how much they kind of pressure him because they've had trouble doing that so far, trying to play more coverage. I think on the other end, Tua, I mean, this was some of his worst games last year going up against the Bills. We saw how that regular season finale went. So, yeah, probably the biggest game of the week in my mind, just because of the implications that we'll get to later for Buffalo if they start 0-2. And then I think Miami, when you look at it, I mean, this is a team that has a pretty light schedule coming up. So, yeah, I think overall this game, it's kind of a must win for the Bills in my mind early on. And I'm just interested to see how aggressive on each side, offense or defense, Miami is in attacking the Bills.
Yeah, I think Miami recognizes that they were fortunate to come away with a win. That's not to say that they didn't deserve it. I just think any good
Right.
team can recognize their faults even in victory. And I think seeing how close the game was and how much it could have gone the other way, Miami knows that they have to improve, but they also see an opportunity to catch a Bills team that might be reeling early. Now, I said that doesn't mean that they're about ready to tip over the edge, but maybe you get socked in the mouth a little early in the bout. You're gonna be
Yeah.
a little bit on your heels a little bit, and maybe that's what's going to happen with the Bills. And let's not discount the fact that they're going from the Northeast down to Miami in September, which is not an
Right.
easy thing to do. We saw last week the Packers really struggle. Looked like they struggled quite a bit in that heat in Jacksonville when they took on the Saints. And yes, you heard me right. It was in Jacksonville that game. I think Buffalo can get right in this one. They've won the last 5, but as I said on Thursday, I'm still a little bit hesitant about what I saw last week, and I'm worried that maybe this Buffalo team, we saw the best of what they could be last season, and now we're about to find out where they really are. Like, are they going to kind of come down to earth a little bit? No, I think their defense is still really, really good. I wonder if they can recapture that consistency on offense because, look, Ben Roethlisberger, Pittsburgh, they weren't that great on offense. This wasn't
No.
a elite offensive performance by Pittsburgh that Buffalo just couldn't overcome. This was poor quarterback play on both sides, really, and poor inefficient offense. So I'm really concerned about what we're going to see out of Buffalo. If they start firing on all cylinders early, then I think a lot of my concerns are going to go out the window. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So I noticed you said this was perhaps the most intriguing matchup of the week, and I was a little shocked because the game we're going to talk about next, or at least the players we're going to talk about next, I figured would be up higher on that list, and that is the Ravens and Chiefs, Lamar versus Patrick Mahomes. Look, I mean, this is of the AFC, these two guys have already met in the playoffs. They've already met several times, in the regular season. I believe, what is it, 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times, right?
3 times. Yep.
So, this is tough. I mean, both teams. The Baltimore Ravens lost 33-27, and the Chiefs won 33-29. So the two games were eerily similar in a sense that it was bonkers really for parts of the game towards the end of the Ravens. Oakland won, of course, and then obviously Kansas City storming back to win that one. Both teams I think are among the AFC elite, I would say, for sure. But I think they're both very flawed. And again, it's early in the season, so these flaws could quickly go away as we see them play over the next couple of weeks. But going into this game, who has, in your opinion, more pressure on them? And I think the answer is pretty obvious that it's Lamar Jackson.
Right.
But how much pressure is there for him to come in and perform well and win this game?
Yeah, I think I was kind of listening to something on NFL Network the other day. Maurice Jones-Drew was talking, and it was a really interesting point that I didn't think about right now with all the Baltimore injuries. Them kind of trying to find their identity. You kind of saw them actually want to throw it a little more against Vegas Monday night, and it looked like Lamar was okay with that, and he was really, really trying to stay in the pocket and not take off and run too early. So it's really interesting to me on Lamar's front if he's going to try to just say screw it and try to use his legs a little more this week. And how Baltimore's going to go about their offensive attack in this one, just because, like I've kind of said every week, I mean, against Kansas City, you got to score points every week. And Lamar, I think, I don't think he's incapable of doing that with his arm, but I don't know if he has enough help to get it done. So, yeah, I think the pressure on him this week, it's just probably the most that he's probably ever had to face so far in his young career.
Now, Kansas City, I think, look, they were without Tyrann Mathieu last week. That's going to hurt. But defensively, they looked pretty vulnerable. And, kind of the Chiefs, we know how dangerous they are on offense, but they still have this, it's just this weird habit of going quiet for stretches, whether it's a quarter, sometimes a half. And my concern, if I was the Chiefs fan, is like that it's happening far too often, because eventually, we've seen it at times where teams aren't going to make those mistakes. Any comeback, even, the 28-3 comeback, all that stuff, it requires defensive mishaps on the other, the losing team side, or offensive mishaps as well. So, it's not just all on one team's offense. So yes, I'm saying that both parts are involved, but to have it happen, it feels like it happens often. Now you follow the Chiefs a lot closely, or more closely than I do. Am I off here? Is this perception not quite reality? Because I do feel like there are many times where they do go quiet and they find themselves behind. They tend to pull it out, but I feel like that's living quite dangerously.
Right, and I think the biggest thing has been their starts more than anything in the first quarter. If you go back to Mahomes' first starting year as a starter in 2018, I mean, they were probably the most efficient first quarter offense, and I think as a whole, not just offense but defensively, it's needing to start faster. It's needing to get those sacks that we see in the fourth quarter from Chris Jones come a little more early in this game. So yeah, I think the starts are the biggest thing that they've been working on. Both sides of the ball, and it's just it's really interesting that we're kind of talking about this right now with this matchup against Baltimore, just because that's been the team where they've started off the best against lately. So yeah, I think overall, from an offensive standpoint, I think it's just kind of trying to find a better script maybe to start the game. I know Reed wants to be a little more balanced this season. And I think that's going to be key this year just because I don't trust the wide receiver depth right now. I think they got to go out and make a move. And like you said, if it grows on into later in the season or in the playoffs like this, I don't think this year they're built to have those comebacks that they've had in the past.
Yeah, and and that's partly too with teams getting more comfortable with the Kansas City offense. Now, again, I'm not saying this is more about lessening the damage as opposed to getting comfortable. Certain teams will be able to match up well against Kansas City. We saw the Bucs do that last year. Really, for outside of that first quarter in the regular season game, they really had a good feel for what Kansas City was doing on offense. That doesn't mean that, Kansas City's going to get shut out for the whole game. Eventually they're going to score. So to your point, you just have to learn how to minimize that damage. And if you can do that and make the most out of your opportunities, you're not going to allow a team like Kansas City to come back. They may get a few points, but if you're not giving them opportunities, we saw it with the Texans in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I sort of like bringing this up because it just further emphasizes my thoughts on the Texans, but that idiotic fourth down go for it punt that just completely, I don't know. We're not going to rehash that. That was a long time ago. The point is, if you're disciplined and you don't make mistakes and don't give Patrick Mahomes and the offense extra opportunities to make plays, you're going to prevent them from being able to obviously come back. And if you can get on top of them early, you can ride that to victory and kind of make them play from behind. So, all right. So moving on, we're going to have a little fun here because there's two things I want to, two little topics I want to have some fun with. First, it's the, we might do this every week. We'll kind of see how it goes. It depends on, I guess, what, what happens throughout the week that gives us an opportunity to do this. But actually, we'll start with this one. And, there's some pretty notable performances last week. Both good and bad, as you can see by the list on the bottom of the screen. Now, I think this was, obviously, I think the likelihood of any of these things happening again this week are very low. But if you had to choose which one of these players will have the closest to a repeat performance in week 2 as they did week 1, and we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, and trust me, if you're a Packers fan, you do not want this repeat performance. Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 149 yards passing. I mean, come on. What was that? I mean, I still can't figure that out. And, of course, Chandler Jones, 5.5 sacks. That was the final number, right? 5.5? Yeah, I should have probably checked that.
I think so, yeah.
I'm kind of just blindly reading, even though I have all my notes right here. But so here's the question. Who out of those 3 do you think are going to have the best opportunity to at least come close to matching what they did last week? And, like I said, in some cases, it's not so much an opportunity. It's a let's hope they don't repeat that performance. You're on the clock, Braden.
Wow. I think I'm actually going to have to go with Chandler Jones just because I think the Vikings offensive line, other than Brian O'Neill, I don't know if they have enough firepower or depth to really hold up against Jones in this game. And we've seen Kirk Cousins before kind of pat and hold on to the ball a little bit too long. So I just think it was for Rodgers and Winston, I think it was just so extreme to what end of the spectrum they were on that I just think it's going to take so much for that to happen again. So Chandler Jones, I think with the matchup and that opponent, I think has a very good chance at repeating.
Like I think you're right, but at the same time, I'm also, because of Jameis's performance was so absurd. I mean, it in such a weird way. Like it wasn't like he didn't go out and put 500 or 5 touchdowns and like 400 yards and really just dice and go up and down the field. It was maximizing opportunity, and like part of me thinks that, well, maybe it's not 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but 3-4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Against the Carolina team that they're pretty good. I don't know what they are yet in the division. I think I'm gonna go with Jameis on this one, and I know a lot of people out there that are huge Jameis Winston fans that might enjoy that. But that doesn't mean I think it's going to be sustainable. I think, again, we kind of know who Jameis Winston is. If he, I think he'll get, a little bit better playing under Sean Payton and in this New Orleans offense. But I don't think he's going to all of a sudden turn into, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. I just don't believe that. I just think that the New Orleans Saints are just a well-schemed team. They're a well-coached team that really is setting him up to, maximize what he can do. And I think the opportunities will be there. So I'm going to go with Jameis on this one. It might surprise some, but I might go with Jameis. So next, start, bench, cut. It's our PG version of, that little other Sophie's choice that you have there. But start, bench, cut. Pretty simple. You have Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, and then Josh Allen. If there was a better third option, maybe, I felt like if I put Tua Tagovailoa in there, I felt like it would have been pretty obvious. And maybe I'm just biased against Tua, but I think he's a step behind those 3.
Right.
I'll throw it back to you again. Start, bench, cut. Who are you starting? Who are you benching? And who are you cutting out of this list?
Wow. Starting, I think it comes down to Herbert or Kyler, and I think Dallas defense impressed me enough against Tampa Bay just in a few moments that I think I'll actually start Kyler here. And Kyler's actually started the year pretty hot in the past. It's always been the middle to late season when he's kind of faded. So I think he's going to kind of ride off that good performance against Tennessee last week. So I'd start Kyler, probably bench Herbert, and cut Allen. I just think for some reason, I think Allen right now, this is one of those games where I think we're going to see him kind of press a little bit. And we can get to that a little later on, maybe either game picks or 0-2. But yeah, I think I would cut him out of these 3.
I am unmuted. I agree with the cut. I will cut Josh Allen, but I'm going to start Justin Herbert and bench Kyler Murray in this situation. And you mentioned Dallas defense. Well, they took a pretty big hit this week on that defensive side. And, what's exciting is having a guy like Herbert in the same division as Mahomes, because I feel like we're shaping up to have 2 of the elite signal callers, for a lot of years down the road. I mean, again, eventually we're going to get to this in just a few moments. Eventually Tom Brady's going to retire. Eventually Aaron Rodgers is going to retire. And, these young guns are going to be the veteran guys out there, with maybe like Russell Wilson sticking around a little bit longer. But in this situation, I'm looking, and in most situations, really, I think if you were going to ask me just in general, not just for this week, but just in general, who would I pick out of those 3? I think the answer would be the same. I would start Justin Herbert. I just think his what we've seen so far from him, how he can throw the ball, how accurate he's been, how just dynamic he can be as a player. It's an exciting thing to say, and that's not to say Kyler Murray doesn't have those same things. I just maybe part of me is thinking long term. Okay, how durable can Kyler Murray be? And that should be a concern, because look, he is a smaller guy in a game that has a lot of big players, and the way he plays the position puts him in a vulnerable spot. Now, Justin Herbert, sort of the same thing, but he's a bigger player, more of a pocket guy as opposed to Murray. And if you're going to look at both of them, they're both incredibly talented. They're both incredibly fun to watch. I mean, I would love to see them go at each other each and every week, but in this situation, I'm going to start Justin Herbert, and I'm going to feel pretty good about it, because the guy is just breaking every rookie passing record there is out there. And I think he has a few in line this week and in the upcoming week. So should be fun to watch. There it is. All right. So recently, we're talking about a lot of young quarterbacks so far. And recently, one of the old guys, or the old guy, the resident old guy, the senior, the guy who brings up, the average age of the NFL across the board, Tom Brady, was asked, could you play till 50? Well, okay, that's, you're going to ask me this 5 years ago, and I'm talking about myself now. Or you would have said, well, Tom might play until he's 50. Even I, the biggest Brady honk out there. I mean, look over my right shoulder right now. I have his college jersey hanging. Just ignore all the mess on the floor in my cat's food dish. If you were going to tell me he was going to play till 50, I would have probably laughed. Now, 5 years ago, I'm still, at that point, I've kind of just given in and believed that he could do whatever he wanted. But still, 50 is kind of a pretty tall order. Like, I mean, trying to imagine 50 is just I'm still having trouble with it. But when asked about it, he said it's a possibility. I mean, if he keeps playing well and all this stuff and he feels great, why not? And I'm starting to think to myself, I'm like, is this guy really going to play half of Mahomes' career? Like, I mean, Patrick Mahomes gets drafted in 2017. Tom Brady is his 18th year in the league. You would think that Patrick Mahomes would play more than half of his career with Tom Brady and, out of the league. I don't think that might be the case. Patrick Mahomes might end up having to play half his career with Tom Brady as a counterpart in this league. And to me, it's surprising, but I'm not shocked. And, this is what we're working with here. So in front of me, I have since turning 40, since 2017, and thank you, Tom Brady, for having a birthday on August 3rd, because it makes everything so nice and tidy when we're talking about his age and what season, because pretty much one season is 1 year for him. So he's one game into year 44. Last year was year 43. So since 2017, when he turned 40, he's played in 65 games. He's 48-17, 65% completion percentage, over 18,000 yards, 129 touchdowns, and 41 interceptions. He's won, 2 Super Bowls, been to 3. It's hard to keep track sometimes. And in one of those, through the most yards in NFL history, has an NFL MVP, twice a Super Bowl MVP. And this is just in his 40s. Now, so when people sit there and say, oh, is he going to play till he's 50? Well, maybe. So, I mean, how realistic do you think this is? And I know this is projecting. I mean, we're talking 7 more seasons here. But how realistic do you think this can be?
I think it's honestly pretty realistic, and especially when we kind of go back to what we talked about one of the earlier shows last week of just this being probably the better stretch of his career since that injury in 2008, and I think that just his training and his drive. I mean, it seems like it never stops. It's always at the most elite level, and I think you think about like people have goals and obviously where is he going to get to a point where he's really satisfied? It may just be playing to 50. I mean, get as many Super Bowl appearances or titles as you can. And I mean, I think right now that's that may be his most realistic goal, or most biggest goal that he's after right now, is maybe getting to that 50th season. So yeah, it may sound crazy, but I think overall, I mean, just seeing the ascension that he's still made in certain parts of his game and staying at that elite level, I don't think it's too far off.
Now, here's the question. He's signed with the Bucs for 2 more years, this season and next, and then his contract is over with. Let's assume he does. Let's assume he surpasses this. That would bring him through age 45. He will have obviously 44 this year, 45 next year. Do you think he stays with the Bucs? Do you think this is it? He's not moving on, or maybe he just goes franchise to franchise and pulls downtrodden teams out of the rough that they've been in for years and just wins Super Bowls? That'd be kind of
wow. Yeah, I honestly want to lean to him staying in Tampa Bay, just because there's part of me that I think he'd maybe just want to stay grounded and not have to move from team to team. Kind of just have that continuity maybe within his building year after year. So I could be wrong on that, but I just feel like maybe he'd lean more towards that.
Yeah, and look, I mean, not all solutions are based on just needs and wants. I mean, sometimes salary cap's going to dictate how you're going to go about it, and maybe in a few years, the Bucs wouldn't be able to necessarily afford him. Now, I laugh because, like, part of me, I do deep down think if he does continue to play like this, he will stay in Tampa. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's only, again, you talk this year, 44, 45, 46, 7, 8, 9. So 7 years, including this year, which actually is quite a while if you think about it. But 7 years, I don't think he'd have the want or need to move place to place. I mean, especially, hey, this is Florida. It's nice year round, and he seems to be having a pretty good time. But
Yeah.
part of me, like I kind of mentioned before, wants him to like go to the Lions and win a Super Bowl, go to like San Francisco and win a Super Bowl just to get them out of the rough. Maybe just go to places that just haven't won anything in forever. Go to Cincinnati,
Right.
win a Super Bowl. Just do these things, and just that's going to be his last 4 or 5 years in the league. Just kind of this grand goodbye tour. So, but reality, okay. So he plays till 50. I've already said it. 7 years. Okay, you got 7
Right.
years. I got an over under Super Bowl wins, not appearances, wins.
Wins.
2.5. And I think I almost could have put it at 3.5, but I feel like this was a far better number. If he plays 7 more seasons, now again we're projecting on top of projections here, so this is really at the end of the day pretty silly and just time filling. But if he does play these 7 years, including this season, over under 2.5 more Super Bowl wins.
I'm gonna say probably yes if he stays in Tampa, just because. I mean, you think about the NFC right now. You talked about Rodgers. I mean, honestly, after last week, I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to retire during this season. Um, Russell, I don't know. I mean, he may be even gone from Seattle before we even know it. And I think just the NFC, if he's stuck with Tampa Bay, I don't know how much of a challenge it's actually going to be in that conference. Maybe Dak is his biggest one. So I think if he and the Bucks, if he stays in Tampa, is able to get there year after year, I think odds are usually going to be in his favor. So I'd probably say yes.
Yeah, I'm not a big numbers guy, but there hasn't been 2 consecutive seasons since 2012 and 2013 in which Tom Brady did not win a Super Bowl. I like those odds. So over the course of 7, not just go to, so I'm talking win a Super Bowl. 2014 he won, 2016 he won, 2018 he won, 2020 he won. So you get what I'm saying. Like there isn't a long period of time. So going to 2.5 more Super Bowls, that lock that in. If he plays 7 years, easily, that's an over. No problem. Yeah. Winning 2.5. Again, I think it's a pretty obvious answer. I mean, it's a little bit tougher than just going to 2.5, but give me the odds that you will. And look, I think Tampa's good enough to win it this year. So knock one of those off right now. Right. So in the final 6 years, I'm looking at him winning 2 Super Bowls. Yeah, I like those odds. Right. So you know what? If he wants to play till 50, I say, please do it. And I would love for him to finish his career with 10 Super Bowl wins, not just appearances, 10 Super Bowl wins, and just crush the hopes and dreams of many people around the world. So, okay, next thing we're going to talk about, obviously, we have, let me get these numbers out. I have these fancy numbers in front of me that clearly I'm not organized enough to keep track of, but teams that start 0-2. Now, most of this data is based on, a 16-game schedule. Obviously, we're moving to 17 games this year, so maybe that gets skewed just a little bit. But it's still out there. If you lose the first 2 games, your likelihood of going to the playoffs, your percentage of going to the playoffs drops significantly. And now this is the part where normally I would pull out my sheet and read the numbers and make it sound like I'm really smart, but I did not have it in front of me, but I do now. So teams that start 0-2, making the playoffs 11.6% since 1990. That's pretty low. 5.8. We're talking like Aaron Rodgers week 1 numbers here. Won the division 5.8%. Okay, 15 out of 258 instances of this happening. And finally, teams that start 0-2 since 1990, 3 out of 258 have won the Super Bowl. One of which was a team led by Tom Brady in 2001. So the point is, even though it's early in the season, even though we're not even halfway through September, or barely halfway through September, if you start the season 0-2, you're in quite a bit of trouble. I'm looking at a handful of teams now. Giants are already 0-2. That's a problem. We already talked about them. They played on Thursday. They dropped to 0-2. The entire NFC North is risking going 0-2 right now. Atlanta going up against Tampa. You might want to pin them in for 0-2 already. And of course, you have Indy, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Cleveland, Baltimore, New England, the Jets, and Buffalo all sitting at 0-1 right now. So I'll ask you, Braden, which team cannot afford, or who can afford who would be in the worst position right now if they dropped to 0-2? I know it's a little bit different for each team depending on which division and who your competition is, but one of these teams is going to be in the biggest trouble dropping 0-2. Which one is it going to be?
Yeah, you mentioned the division. So I of the teams I wrote down, I think Titans and Packers will have a light enough division. I don't think they'd be in as much danger as they could. To me, it comes down to the Bills, the Browns, and the Ravens. And I think the Browns, that would probably be a shocker, right, if they lost today to Houston. But, I mean, Tyrod Taylor looked good last week. So to me, it comes down to the Bills and Ravens. I think the Bills have enough reinforcements right now that I think my pick's going to be Baltimore, just because to me, I think they're in the best division in the AFC North. I mean, even with Pittsburgh finishing how they did last season. And I think just it's the health of this team right now. We're talking guys that they're not going to be back in a few weeks. I mean, guys that they're missing right now are out pretty much for the season. And it's just you talk about what they want to achieve with the running game, what they want to do with blitzing the most in the league defensively. When you're missing guys like Marcus Peters and then Dobbins, Gus Edwards, guys like that, I just think so much has to go right for them. And you think back to last year in the AFC where a 10-win team missed the playoffs with an extra playoff seed. It's just so much I think has to go right for them. So I think I got to pick the Ravens here.
Yeah, I mean that you almost swayed me, because I pretty much came to the same conclusion that those are the two teams that really cannot, the Bills and the Ravens, that cannot afford to drop to 0-2. Now, you look at the NFC East and it's like, yeah, we say, okay, the Giants are already 0-2, but it's the NFC East. We've already talked about what it could potentially take to win that division. They're not out of it yet. NFC North, again, Green Bay, I joke, but I don't think we're going to get close to a repeat performance in what we did last week. And even so, they're all 0-1 right now. So dropping to 0-2 isn't necessarily going to kill you. Kind of the same deal with the AFC South, where Tennessee, I think, they have some rope when it comes to trying to figure out what potentially, issues they might have, or, if they can fix them to get back into this division, which, again, Houston's leading it right now. No, I don't think that's going to be like that at the end of the season. Houston may still only have one win, but you know what I'm saying. They'll be at the bottom of that division standing list. I think it's Buffalo. And for the reasons that if they drop to 0-2, that means that they've lost to Miami. And Miami now already has two division wins against, for what it's worth, the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills, not the New York Jets, who I think are the worst of these four teams in this division. So all of a sudden, Buffalo falls to 0-2. Now, if they lose this game, now this is two games in a row that Josh Allen, I would assume, didn't play up to what we expect him based on last year. So all of a sudden, you drop to 0-2. And now those questions that you had from week one, you double down on those. Now all of a sudden, those questions turn into maybe more doubts than anything. And I think that could potentially snowball, because, I do think New England is going to be a pretty good team. And when Buffalo eventually has to play them, I think they're going to be a lot better than what they are right now. So Buffalo cannot afford to drop to 0-2. Fortunately for them, they didn't lose last week to a divisional opponent, but losing a divisional game this early on could be pretty tough for this team, who's, kind of people's pencil AFC East champions. And you know what?
Right.
They're not the Patriots. They haven't had this long run of history to fall back on. This could potentially be a pretty tough season for them if they let it get out of control early. So for all those reasons, I'm going to go with Buffalo being in the least desirable position if they fall to 0-2. All right. So last week we or actually the last several times we've been on here, we've done our play pickup props. And, that's our fun that we do with our friends over at Play Pickup, where they have all these great props that you can participate in. You can send in and win prizes, win money, all that stuff. And then, of course, you can see them appear in our articles across Full Press Coverage, Full Press Hockey as well. So we like to have a little bit of fun with it. And, well, just like everything else, I apparently don't have everything set. So I'm just going to talk over for just a moment while I try to figure this all out. We'll go through, we'll play some props here, and we will give our best opinion on it. We'll try to get it close. I don't know how we did last week, to be honest with you. I didn't really check. I just know that basically we were fairly close on a few of them, way off on a couple others. And let's see if I can do this here, bring this over here. Okay, well, let's just jump right in here. I got the first one up, so it's not quite working out as nice and smooth as it was for me last week, but here we go. Allen versus Tagovailoa. And that's because we were just talking about Josh Allen. We were just talking about the Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills. Who has more rushing yards today in Miami between the Dolphins and the Bills? And that's between the two quarterbacks.
I think I got to go Josh Allen here, just because his history that we kind of talked about earlier of really good rushing numbers against Miami. And I honestly just, whenever I think about Tua, I think he's always going to be more willing to run or throw on the run before he takes off. So I think Allen's a little more willing to take it if it's there. So I got to go Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Again, I think he, based on his play from last week, maybe he relies on his legs a little bit more to get him in rhythm. I mean, that's fine. That's what you would expect. Let him get comfortable and refocus. And I'm kind of with you. I think Miami could be a little vulnerable to that. So I'm going to agree with you and go with Josh Allen as well. So the next one that we have is another rushing one, but it's between two running backs. Who do we got? We got Zeke Elliott versus Austin Eckler. That was those EKEs in there were throwing me off. Zeke Elliott versus Austin Eckler. Who has more total yards, not just rushing yards, in week 2?
Oh man, this is tough because of the injury with DeMarcus Lawrence. But I also think that with Zeke, it's a question of how much touches he's going to get. So I'm actually going to go Eckler here. I think Tony Pollard's going to get enough carries that Zeke won't quite pass him. So I expect the Chargers to kind of be leading late in this game. So I think with that, Eckler will get some extra carries. So give me Eckler here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just I worry about Zeke's. What's his future going to be like? What's he really going to be moving forward? Austin Eckler, I think, is one of the more dynamic players in this league. And I think based on, again, what we saw and the injuries that the Cowboys have faced, I think this is a pretty easy bet for Austin Eckler. So give me Eckler. I think I've actually already made that prop bet already. So hopefully I'll be right on this one. So next we have Mr. Teddy Bridgewater versus Trevor Lawrence. More passing yards in week 2. Who's it going to be?
Give me Trevor in this one. I know it's a tough matchup. I think he's kind of gonna show some different things this week. Throwing a little bit more quick passes rather than sitting in the pocket. And I think Denver's gonna always lean a little bit more on the running game this season. So I'm gonna go Trevor here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Trevor Lawrence is his stat line from last week was essentially my Madden stat line. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a bunch of yards. I have a feeling you're going to see maybe not 3 interceptions, but you're going to see more stat lines like that where obviously, he's a guy who's going to need to carry this Jacksonville team if they want to win some games. And he's learning a bit on the fly. So in that case, though, it does mean he's probably going to rack up a bunch of passing yards at the very least. And that's what this question's asking. So give me Trevor Lawrence in this one. So, all right, next one we have. All right, hold on. Here we go. Coming up. Devontae Smith, Philadelphia Eagles, over under 3.5 catches. I had to read that for a second. I had a little trouble.
Let's go over here. I think he's kind of already won in the ways that we saw him do in college and being able to separate pretty easily. And he's obviously got that chemistry with Jalen Hurts from the past. So yeah, I got to go over here. I think he's really coming into his own right now of all the rookie pass catchers.
It's unfortunate. We haven't. I don't think we've disagreed on these first four yet, right? Right? Maybe.
I don't think so.
We had our 0-2
Maybe.
disagreement. Outside of that, I
Yeah.
think we've pretty much agreed on every one of these, and I agree with you as well. You can see how comfortable he looked last week, and again, I think 3.5 is a fairly low number that I think he easily tops. So give me the over on this one, and hopefully we continue to be right, because I think we're going to be right this week. I think this week is going to be a little bit different than it was last week. So last but not least, we have 99.5 yards receiving for DeAndre Hopkins. Over, under, what say you?
I'm gonna go over again here. I think Minnesota. It's one of those teams that I never trust, and they've been making a lot of changes at corner. So he's the number one guy in that offense. I think he's going to continue to see open looks. So give me the over here.
Yeah, very, very boringly, I guess I'm going to agree with you, because, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is just DeAndre Hopkins, and he does things each and every week that, we all sit here and say, oh, yeah, he looks like he could be the best wide receiver in the league. So give me the over 99.5, and I'll be pretty happy with that. So moving on, this was our last prop of the day, but that means we still have our picks to make. So we're going to wrap up this show by giving our picks for this week. And assuming I can find my sheet, we can get started here. So we're just going to run down. We're going to give our little bit of thoughts on the games itself, and then, give our picks. We can throw out scores if you feel bold, but it's all right. We are just going to give our picks. So I'm going to bring up the schedule right here, as you can see nicely. Okay, you can kind of read that, and it takes our ugly mugs off the screen, at least minimize it a little bit. So let's start. 1:00 games. We have New England at the New York Jets. I'm taking the Patriots in this one. It's fascinating to see the two rookie signal callers go head to head, and we're going to see this quite a bit this season. But I think New England is a better team. I think they showed a lot of good things in losing to Dolphins last week, and I think they improve on those things that they didn't do quite well last week, and in victory against the Jets. So give me the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. It's pretty simple for me. I mean, Belichick's history against rookie quarterbacks, I mean, it's unprecedented, and Zach Wilson right now, he's having to do a lot kind of on his own in my mind. So I just think too much this early on in the season for Wilson. So give me the Patriots.
Next, we have Denver at Jacksonville, taking on Trevor Lawrence, obviously, and the Jaguars. I like Denver in this one. Again, I mean, maybe it says more about what I think about Jacksonville right now, but Denver has better defense. I think, offensively, they are what they are, but I think Jacksonville still has a ways to go before they become a pretty competent team. So give me Denver.
Yeah, I agree. Denver, I think the defense number one for them, but I think also just both sides of the trenches. I think there's too much experience and too much kind of dominance there for the Jaguars to win enough battles. So I like Denver pretty comfortably in this one.
Next, we have Buffalo heading to Miami. We spent a lot of time talking about the quarterbacks in this game in general. I actually have Buffalo winning this game. As much as we've talked about how much pressure is on them and how much maybe the advantage goes to Miami going down to Buffalo, playing in Miami in September. I still have Buffalo kind of getting out of their funk. That doesn't mean that they're going to solve all the issues they had last week. I just think, Buffalo will be good enough to eke out a win this week.
I'm going to go Dolphins as much as they've struggled against the Bills lately. I think this is just one of those games where I just think they're a little more built for Buffalo. The entirely felt today. So I think they're just going to kind of exhaust Buffalo in a close one to the very end. And I think that heat is going to play enough of a factor as well. So give me the Dolphins to finally get one over the Bills here.
Next, we have San Francisco at Philadelphia. As much as a surprise that Philadelphia was last week and how good they looked, I think San Francisco is, a potential Super Bowl caliber team. So I just think they're better. And even traveling on the road heading east, I give me San Francisco in this one.
Yeah, San Francisco, I think it if you just look at the coaches and their kind of resumes stacking up against each other, not to say Sirianni can't be good, but I think Kyle Shanahan's gonna have too much for the Eagles in this one to handle. So I like the Niners here.
Next, we have the Rams heading to Indianapolis. We saw last week how good the Rams could be, specifically on offense. I mean, we know they're really good on defense and have some of the best players in the league on defense. But that offense, I think, is what's going to be the game changer for them, as opposed to what we've seen in the last few years. And I don't think Indianapolis really stands a chance. I don't have a lot of faith in the Colts. In general, going up against a team like the Rams, I have negative faith. Let's put it that way. So give me the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I do too, and I think it's still a wait and see thing with Carson Wentz, and this is an extremely tough defense to go up against until he kind of gets rolling or gets on all cylinders. I think it's going to be a tough game for him, so I like the Rams a lot here.
Next, we have an old school battle of some of the original NFL teams out there. We have not from Las Vegas, but we have the Raiders at Pittsburgh. I can never understand, or I can never figure out what to make of the Raiders. Never. Sometimes they look great. Other times they look like, the team I've seen for the last 15 years that have just been kind of an obstacle for themselves. However, I do think they win this week. And, part of it is I liked what I saw last week and how they, eked out that win and were able to come away with that victory late. But I also am a bit concerned. I think Pittsburgh's defense is great, and they can win them a lot of games. I saw a Ben Roethlisberger that just was not the elite Ben Roethlisberger that we've seen in a while. And I don't think this is just a, shaking off the cobweb start to the season. I think this might be a more permanent thing. So in which case the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have to figure out how to be a very efficient offense. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do it. Certainly not by this time tomorrow or this time later or this time tomorrow. I think they're going to look back and say they just didn't have enough firepower to keep up with the Raiders in this one. So give me the Raiders on the road.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I thought about going Raiders, but I think I kind of lean on that defense a little bit today. I think there's going to be some better coaching than what they saw from the Ravens running cover zero all day. So I think there's going to be tougher throws for Derek Carr to make. I'm not super confident in it, but I'll go Steelers.
Next, we have Chicago hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, the Andy Dalton Bowl, as they say.
Yeah.
Revenge Bowl. Revenge for what? I don't know. Maybe, who knows? But I got Chicago in this one. I don't really have any really good reason other than I think the Bengals are going to be better with Joe Burrow. I still think they have a ways to go. But if you had to put a gun to my head and make me choose, I guess I'll go with Chicago on this one.
Yeah, I'm going Cincinnati, complete toss-up. I just think that I don't necessarily trust Chicago's secondary right now. They gave up a lot of deep passes, and I think Burrow is one of those guys that is going to find those and hit them. So Cincinnati is where I'm going here.
Next, Cleveland trying to rebound against Houston. Give me Cleveland here. I was shocked that Houston won last week, and I thought, like I joked earlier, that might be their only win of the season. I think Cleveland, after a pretty tough, pretty tough loss. I mean, again, getting in their own way type of stuff. They're going to rebound against a bad team in Houston, and I think they're going to do it fairly comfortably, even without, I believe, Odell Beckham Jr. for the second week. So give me Cleveland. Yeah,
pretty simple for me. Cleveland, I just think is the better team, and I think sometimes it's just simple as that. I think they have, a lot more guys that are closer to elite, where Houston's rebuilding right now. So I got the Browns.
Next, we have NFC South matchup, New Orleans at Carolina. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we said, okay, what's close, which player could repeat his performance from week one? And I said Jameis Winston. So give me New Orleans in this one. I think they're going to surprise some people jumping out to 2-0, but probably not too many because I mean they do still have some talent on this team. But yeah, give me New Orleans on the road against Carolina.
Yeah, me too. I think Sam Darnold against this secondary is going to be really interesting to watch in his second game with the Panthers. So even without Lattimore, if he doesn't play, you got Gardner Johnson. You've got a lot of other guys in that secondary that are pretty versatile. So I like the Saints here on the road.
Next, we have Minnesota at Arizona. I think we're both going to agree on this one too. I got Arizona winning this one. I just think Minnesota. I'm done trying to pick them to win stuff because every time I do, they don't. So, yeah, Arizona. Give me Arizona.
Right, and I'll go with Arizona too. And just to kind of add something, the Minnesota Vikings have a lot of their bigger name guys are questionable or out in this game. So without that, I don't know how they keep up. Give me the Cardinals.
Speaking of teams, I don't know how are going to keep up. Atlanta heads to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's career against Atlanta is it's pretty good. Let's just put it that way. We don't have to rehash some of their more recent moments, but no, I mean I think we saw last week Atlanta is just a team that is searching for some sort of identity. They're not. I don't think anyone considers them an elite team. They have an elite quarterback, but that's really about it. I think Tampa has a pretty comfortable victory this afternoon at home. So
Right. Yeah. Bucks are healthier. They're the better team. And just to add something, the Falcons last week, no other receiver caught a pass last week besides Calvin Ridley. Just running backs and tight ends besides him caught balls. So against this defense, I mean, that's probably going to look even worse. So yeah, the Bucks should feel pretty comfortable in this one.
next, Seattle hosting Tennessee. Tennessee, didn't have a rough week, and maybe they kind of fall under the same category as the Bills when it comes to falling to 0-2 because it's not just about 0-2, but it's all of a sudden the doubt creator. They just happen to be in a division that's I think is going to be a little bit more forgiving, the AFC South as opposed to the AFC East. But this is going to be a tough one for Tennessee, and I don't think that they're going to win this one. And after how they looked last week, this might start raising some alarms moving forward. And we'll just have to see. But I think Seattle wins this one.
Yeah, I got Seattle. I got Seattle too. I think I kind of disrespected them a little bit last week when I took the Colts. I mean, this defensive line actually looks probably better than they've had in a long time, and I think that's going to be tough for a Titans team that just struggled against Chandler Jones and all those guys in Arizona. So yeah, I think Seattle at home. The 12s are back in the stands. It's going to be all Seahawks here today.
Chargers hosting the Cowboys. The last of the 4:00 games. I got the Chargers winning this one. We kind of talked about it a little bit. We talked about the running backs, some of the quarterbacks. I like Herbert in this. I think he's going to put up some nice numbers. And again, having Austin Eckler at his side is going to be pretty nice. So give me the Chargers at home.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Dallas is one of those teams. Just so much has to go right for him, right? I think Dak has to throw for these many yards, and the defense has to get this many stops. It's just too much right now against a Chargers team that is really good starting the season off. Herbert looks comfortable. So yeah, give me the Chargers here.
Next, and last but not least for our Sunday slate of games, we have Baltimore hosting Kansas City. I think this could obviously be the best game of the week or of the day at least. It should be entertaining. I hope it's close. I'm going to go out on a limb, I guess, and say I'm going to take Baltimore at home. I think it's really I just have a feeling it's going to come down to the very last play or one of the very last plays in this game. I don't think this is going to be an obvious win for either team. I think they're closer than most people think. I think they both do different things very well. So far, Kansas City has had the upper hand in this matchup, but I do think the Ravens finally get theirs in this matchup between Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. And so give me the Ravens.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs, until I see them lose to the Ravens, I'm going to pick them over Baltimore every time, and especially just when the Ravens are not 100%. That kind of adds to it a little bit for me. So yeah, give me the Chiefs Sunday night.
And perfect. Just like that, we wrapped up our picks, our Sunday FPC NFL Sunday. We hit it exactly at an hour. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for sticking around with us. Feel free to give us a follow on Twitter at Full Press NFL. And of course, if you want to listen to the show back, go ahead and search for the Full Press NFL podcast. Everyone, have a great Sunday. Enjoy football, and we'll talk to you later in the week.